$20. That's what you just paid for a drink that took maybe 8 seconds to pour. There's a bottle on ice at the table behind you that cost somebody $1,000, and nobody blinked. The room is full. The bass is doing that thing where you feel it in your teeth. Everyone in here is spending money like the night doesn't end, and from where you're standing, this looks like the easiest business on the planet. Here's what you don't see. You don't see this same room on a Tuesday afternoon. Dark, silent, empty, chairs stacked. The only sound is a compressor humming somewhere behind the bar. And here's the part that'll mess with your head. The owner is paying for that empty room right now. Rent doesn't care that nobody's dancing. The lease charges the same on the dead nights as it does when there's a line around the block. So let me set up the thing we're going to follow for the rest of this. Picture an illustrative club. 400 people, legal capacity, open 3 nights a week. Everything I run through tonight is a model. Numbers I'm using so you can see the machine work, not some official industry average. Fair warning up front on that. And by the end of this, I'm going to give you the exact number of bodies that have to walk through that door before the owner actually gets paid. Not before the club makes money, before the owner does. Those are two completely different things, and the gap between them's where most of the drama lives. Because that $20 drink, it's real, but it's an illusion about what it's actually paying for. Walk into our club at 10 p.m., and you'd swear it was going to be a bust. Bartenders restocking, a security guy leaning on the rail, bored. Maybe 6 people scattered around a room built for 400. If you're the owner standing in that, your stomach is somewhere around your shoes. Then something flips. By 11:30, there's a line. By midnight, the line is a problem. A good problem. The kind you want, but a problem. And here's the brutal part. That whole rush, the money, the magic, all of it happens inside a window that's maybe 4 hours wide. Midnight to close, and then it's over. Think about what that means. Most businesses sell all day. A coffee shop earns at 7 a.m. and again at 2 p.m. A club earns in a knife-thin slice of the night, 3 nights a week, and if you miss it, you don't get it back. That's the thing nobody explains about this business. The product is capacity, and capacity is perishable. An empty seat at 1 a.m. isn't inventory you can sell tomorrow. It's gone. It rotted in real time. A hotel with an empty room loses that night forever, and a club is a hotel where the room only exists for 4 hours. Now stack the calendar on top of that. Rain on a Saturday, and your best night just took a hit you can't recover. A holiday weekend where everybody left town. A competing event across the street. You don't get a makeup night. The week has the nights it has, and each one either fires or it doesn't. So the owner isn't selling drinks. Not really. The owner's renting out a few hours of a packed room over and over and praying the room fills before the window slams shut. Which raises the obvious question, when it does fill, how much does each of those bodies actually leave behind? Let's follow one bottle, because this is where the fantasy math starts to fall apart. The standard pour in the U.S. is a serving of a spirit measured at 1.5 fluid ounces. That's the official yardstick. A regular 750 milliliter bottle holds a little under 26 ounces, which works out to about 16 or 17 of those pours. We'll call it 16 saleable pours, leaving a little slack for spills and heavy hands. That 16 isn't an industry stat. It's just what the arithmetic gives you. Okay, say each of those pours goes into a drink you sell for $12. 16 pours, $12 each. That bottle just turned into $192 in sales. Now, what did the bottle cost? Let me be crystal clear here. I'm going to invent a price for this, purely as an example. Say the club bought that bottle for $30. That's not a real wholesale quote. I'm making it up so you can watch the logic. 30 in, 192 out. That's $162 of gross profit on a single bottle. And this, right here, is the number that fools everybody. This is the number that makes people cash out their savings and sign a lease. Because here's what that $162 does not pay for. It doesn't pay the bartender who poured it, or the barback who hauled the case up from the basement, or the security at the door, the DJ in the booth, the rent on the empty Tuesday, the insurance, the licensing, the cleaner mopping up at 4 a.m. Drink-level profit is a beautiful number that lives in a fantasy where the drink pours itself in a room that costs nothing. The real world takes that 162 and starts carving. So the question becomes, across a whole night, how many ways is that room actually pulling money out of people's pockets? 3 doors. Every dollar in this building comes through one of 3. Door number 1 is literally the door. The cover charge. In our base model, I'm going to call that $9 a head. And I'm calling it effective cover on purpose, because plenty of people never pay it. The guest list walks free. The promoter's people walk free. Comps for the right faces walk free. So the club might advertise 20 at the door, but blend in everybody who got waved through, and you land somewhere around 9 per guest. That's the real number. Door number 2 is the bar. In the base model, the average guest spends $30 over the night. Some spend nothing, some spend $200, and it averages out to $30. Door number 3 is the bottle service. The tables, the VIP, spread across every single guest, not just the ones popping bottles. That adds about $5 a head in our model. 9, 30, 5, $44 per guest per night. That's the base case. Now here's the tension baked into that first door. Every free entry, every comp, every name on the list, it feels like giving money away, and on paper it is. But an empty room earns nothing, and looks like it earns nothing. And looking empty is fatal. So the owner trades cover dollars for bodies, betting those free bodies buy at the bar and make the room look alive enough that paying customers want in. Comp too few, the room feels dead. Comp too many, you filled the place and forgot to charge for it. That's the razor. And it only works if there are bodies to comp in the first place, which means we have to talk about where the crowd even comes from. Here's the strangest thing about this whole business. The product you're selling is other people. Nobody drives across town, pays to park, and waits in a line to stand in an empty room. They come because the room is full. They come because other people came. The crowd is the inventory. The crowd is the reason there's a crowd. Which is a gorgeous trap, if you think about it. When it works, it feeds itself. Full room pulls a fuller room. The line makes the line longer. Everyone wants in because everyone's already in. But run that engine backwards, and it eats you alive. Slow night looks slower. People peek in, see 40 souls in a 400 room, and keep walking. Empty makes empty. So how do you get it started? You go find the people who already control a crowd. That's the promoter with 300 followers who actually show up when he posts. That's the DJ whose name on the flyer means a certain kind of night sells out. They can walk demand right through your door on a Thursday you'd otherwise lose. Real value, but nothing's free. The promoter wants a cut, or the door, or a table on the house. The big DJ wants a fee that lands before you've sold a single drink. And bit by bit, you're renting out control of your own room. Whose crowd is it? Yours, or the guy who brought them? Because if it's his, he can walk and take Thursday with him. And every one of those bodies in the room needs someone working to keep them there. Count the payroll. Bartenders slinging drinks fast enough to keep the line from turning ugly. Barbacks feeding them ice and bottles so they never stop. Security at the door reading faces, and more security inside reading the room. Management running the floor. Cleaners who show up after everyone leaves and turn a war zone back into a venue. And the DJs, the talent, the promoters, the people you paid just to make sure anyone came at all. Put a number on it. Nationally, the May 2025 federal wage data puts bartenders at a median of about $16.50 an hour, mean closer to $19.60. Security guards, median around $18.30, mean about $20.40. But read the fine print. Those are national figures for the whole occupation, not nightclub quotes, and not what a shift actually costs the owner once you load in taxes and everything else. The bartender numbers may fold in tips too, so treat them as a floor to think from, not a bill. And here's the sting. All of this labor is stacked into the same tiny window. You're not paying steady wages across a normal workday. You're paying a whole staff to swarm the same 4 hours, 3 nights a week. But labor and product and rent, those are just the costs of opening the doors. Before you can even hire a soul or pour a drink, there's a whole different mountain to climb: the right to open at all. Before a single guest walks in, before the first bottle gets cracked, an owner has to earn the right to open the doors at all. That right isn't automatic, it's stacked, layer on layer, and every layer has a gatekeeper. Start with the liquor license. You can't legally sell a drink without it, and it defines what you can pour and when you have to stop. Then the approved hours, the clock the city hands you, telling you exactly when the music dies and the lights come up. Then capacity, which isn't a suggestion, it's a fire code number written on a certificate on the wall. Then insurance, which, for a room full of intoxicated strangers dancing in the dark, is not cheap. Then music rights, because those songs the DJ is spinning belong to someone, and someone wants paying. And behind all of it, local enforcement, the inspectors, the officers, the neighbor who files a noise complaint at 1 a.m. Here's the thing worth sitting with. None of this is standardized. What's legal in one town is a fine in the next. Closing hours, permit conditions, the whole rulebook shifts the moment you cross a municipal line. Take New York as one example of how local this gets. The state liquor authority runs its own licensing, its own permits, its own conditions, a system built for New York, not a template for the country. And to see how big the ecosystem around this can grow, look at one city's own numbers. A New York City report, based on 2016 activity, estimated the broader nightlife economy there at roughly 299,000 jobs and $35.1 billion in total output. Inside that, the bar's subsector, which folded in nightclubs, came to about 2,100 establishments, 13,400 direct jobs, $2 billion in direct output. Those figures are dated, they're specific to one city, and they say nothing about how any single club performs. But they tell you the machine an owner is plugging into is enormous. So you've cleared the permission stack. The license is framed on the wall. What does one actual Saturday do to the bank account? Let's build a single night, guest by guest, in our illustrative model. 250 people through the door. Not a legendary night, not a dead one, a solid Saturday. In our model, each of those guests is worth about $44. That's not one line item, it's 3. Around $9 in effective cover, once you account for the comps, the guest list, the people you waved in free to make the room look alive. Then $30 at the bar. Then $5 more from the VIP and table side, spread across every head in the building. Stack those and you get $44 a person. Multiply by 250 and the register reads $11,000. Feels like a fortune. Now watch it drain. The liquid itself, the vodka, the mixers, the bottles on the tables, costs money to buy. In our model, that's about one night $225 for the night. Then the cards. Almost nobody pays cash anymore, and the processors take their slice on every swipe. Call it $330. So far you've spent a little over $2,000, and you've barely touched the real expense. Because the biggest number hasn't hit yet. The people. The bartenders moving fast enough to keep a line from forming. The security reading the room. The DJ shaping the night. The crew that shows up when everyone else leaves to scrub the place back to clean. Add talent and cleaning, And in our model, you're looking at roughly $5,500 for one night's payroll and services. Do the subtraction. 11,000 in, minus product, minus fees, minus all those people. And you're left holding about $3,245. Hear this clearly, because it's the trap the whole business hides inside, that $3,245 is not profit. Not close. It hasn't paid rent yet. It hasn't paid insurance, marketing, the repair on the broken cooler, the accountant, or the loan. It's just what survived one night before the real bills line up. So one good Saturday leaves $3,000 on the table. String a year of nights together, and what's the picture? 3 nights a week. 50 weeks a year. That's the calendar in our model, and it's where the story stops being about one night and starts being about survival. Run the week year first. In our model, 150 guests a night, thin covers, thin bar spend. Revenue lands around $807 to $7,500, which sounds like real money until the costs arrive. After operating expenses, the venue is already underwater by about $197,000 before you've paid a cent toward the loan or the owner. Layer in debt service and owner pay, and the year closes at roughly negative $397,000. That's not a slow year. That's an owner writing checks out of savings to keep the lights on, watching the cushion vanish, wondering how many more Saturdays they can personally finance. Now, the base year. In our model, 250 guests a night. The solid Saturday, repeated. Revenue climbs to about $1,650,000. Operating profit before debt and owner pay comes to roughly $271,750. That's a healthy-looking line. But then the loan takes its $120,000, and the owner finally pays themselves $80,000 for a year of midnights and 3 a.m. lockups. What's actually left in the account after all of it? About $71,750. Real, but slim. One flooded basement, one licensing headache, and that cushion is gone. And the strong year, where everything clicks. 350 guests, higher spend, a room with a reputation. Revenue near $2,782,500. After debt and owner pay, roughly $763,125 stays behind. That's the version people picture when they dream about owning a club. It is the upside case in our model, not a promise. Notice what separates disaster from triumph here. It isn't the drink price, it's the crowd. So how thin is the line the base owner is actually walking? Here's the number this whole episode has been walking toward. In our base model, once you add up every operating cost, the $120,000 debt service, and the $80,000 the owner needs to live, the venue has to pull about 35,149 visits across the year just to break even. Spread that over 3 nights a week, 50 weeks, and it comes to roughly 236 guests every single operating night, not to profit, to reach zero. Now remember the base night, 250 guests, 250 minus 236, 14. That's the cushion, 14 people. The difference between an owner who paid themselves and an owner who didn't is 14 bodies on the dance floor. If a bad storm keeps a handful home, if a competing event pulls the crowd across town, if the weather turns and the line thins, you're not shaving profit, you're eating into break-even. Now, this is a model, not a measurement. The exact number moves the second you change an assumption. Cheaper rent, a lighter loan, a smaller paycheck for yourself. The cushion widens. Higher costs, and it narrows to nothing. The point isn't that every club lives on 14 guests. The point is how little slack there can be behind a room that looks completely full. A packed house and a break-even house can look identical from the street. The owner knows the difference, and the owner counts every head. So if the margin is that thin, what is the owner actually selling? Here's what it comes down to. The club isn't selling vodka. It never was. The bottle is a prop. The $20 drink is theater. What the owner is really selling, The only thing worth all that risk and all those midnights is a reliable crowd, compressed into a few expensive hours in a room that feels like the place to be. That's the product, a dependable Saturday, a line out the door that people believe in enough to join. That's why the stronger operator doesn't obsess over poor cost. They build more valuable nights, better talent, tighter door, a reason to come back. And just as important, they protect the money. They guard working capital through the weak weeks, because the weak weeks always come. And the ones who survive are the ones who didn't spend the good Saturday before the quiet Thursday arrived. Which is the last thing to understand, and the hardest. A packed Saturday does not automatically rescue an empty Thursday. They don't net out clean. A blowout weekend can hide 3 dead nights, right up until the rent is due and there's nothing behind the noise. The owner who forgets that is the one writing checks from savings in the weak year, still wondering where the crowd went. So the next time you're paying $20 for a drink in a room that's shaking, look past the glass. Somebody built that crowd on purpose. Somebody's counting the door, watching the cushion, doing the math you never see. The drink was never the business. The crowd was. And holding on to that crowd, night after night after night, is the entire job.